In this section, we're going to be going over financial modeling fundamentals that you need to keep in mind as you build out your most complex and detailed financial models. Starting with how exactly your Excel file should look like. Now, if you think about it, you're most likely not going to be the only person working in your Excel file. You're most likely going to be working with department heads or the CEO or other FP&A and finance and accounting professionals. And it's really important that when you share your financial models with those people, that they can understand really easily what exactly is happening. They should be able to understand what should be edited, where are the source information, and how that leads to the outputs. We're going to cover in these next videos best practices for how to accomplish this. But I want to first start with talking about my philosophy in how to structure your Excel files as a whole. And it starts with what I coined the Excel Dada framework. The first D in the Dada framework stands for dynamic and flexible. The idea is that you should have source tabs. And when those source tabs get refreshed with actual information each month, say from your accounting system, the output tabs should then automatically be updated. So one source can potentially be linked to multiple outputs. I like to also include named ranges in my models, especially for understanding when is the latest month of actuals, so that any formulas that depend on the latest month of actuals will automatically update when that formula changes. The next part in the Dada framework is accuracy. We'll soon talk about how to set up an error check in order to do the hard work for you. But I want you to think about how exactly you can ensure not only when you first set up your financial model that it's entirely accurate, but ideally throughout any time that you use your financial model, you have a real-time display of whether there's an error or not. If there is an error, you should be notified immediately. You don't want to take a chance of an inconsistency somewhere or somewhere where you didn't realize, and because of that, now you have an error that could affect the CEO or management or anyone else in the company. I'm personally not a fan of utilizing circular references, but I have seen people do that sometime to enable iterative calculations in their models. The next D in the Dada framework allows you to make your files digestible. Again, people should easily understand how exactly everything is structured, what they should consume, and what they should edit just by taking a look at your file. And we'll soon talk about the importance of setting color codes so that people can more easily understand those differences. And then lastly, your Excel file should be attractive. Don't make the mistake of just creating some basic financial models without any color, without any design. We're creatures of design, and the prettier your models, the more credibility and the funner you'll have in Excel. Let's now talk a little bit about our financial model schema. Like we spoke about, any Excel file really has three types of data points. Source information, which is an export, let's say, from your general ledger or your headcount platform. Then there are input tabs, which is where you could actually edit your information. And then finally, there are output tabs. So in terms of how I like to structure my financial models, I like to really easily segment that information. My input tabs is mainly consolidated via a drivers tab, which I'll showcase shortly in another video. We may have a few other tabs related to the inputs that can't fit on the drivers tab, such as your headcount, your revenue, capital expenditures, or debt. These input tabs should then drive your output tabs. In this example, the most important output tabs in your financial model are going to be your income statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. The output tabs, though, should ideally be aggregated into some beautiful dashboards and reports where we could understand all sorts of information related to our three financial statements, or a budget versus actual, or a comparison against prior period, or a prior year. Here's an example of a schema of a fully built out detailed financial model. As you can see, the bulk of the information takes place and is aggregated in this driver section as such. That feeds into these three financial statements. And we have an error check, which is checking all the information over here. Now, we may have some additional information that feeds into our revenue build, and we may have some additional information behind the scenes in order to calculate detailed information around our accounts payable or accounts receivable. And finally, all of our information across our financial statements then feed into these dashboards as such. So I like to include a design like this in my financial models so that once again, if someone else takes a look at the model, they could understand exactly what's happening. Let's now do a deep dive on our financial model structure, starting with, to me, the most important tab, the drivers tab.